This sode would not be possible without the support of our listeners, patrons, and sponsors. If you'd like to learn more about supporting the 3-Bit Gamer Show, check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/3BG. And a huge thanks goes out to our boss-level patrons, Christopher and Patrick.
All the best things come in threes. Amigos, ninjas, musketeers, bits, Big Mama's House movies, and now the annual 3-Bit Gamer Show Blursties Awards Show.
Welcome to the best of the worst. All the most mediocre stars and industry novices come together to celebrate our collective disapproval in 2019 gaming. This is the 3rd annual Blursties.
It's the 3-Bit Gamer Show. I'm JD.
This is Peterson.
And we also have Christian Spicer on.
Christian, say hello.
Hello. Hello. I will say hello. I will say hello. Hello.
Hello. So, a quick introduction for Christian, and this is a more of a personal story. So, we started the 3-Bit Gamer Show 2.5 years ago.
Oh my God, yes.
And when we started it, I right around that time started listening to the DLC podcast, which Christian Spicer is one of the co-hosts of, and love DLC. I've been listening to it religiously ever since. Christian, right around that time, right around December, had been saying on his show, hey, I'm going to be coming to Salt Lake for a comedy show, because Christian is not only a talented podcaster, but also an amazing comedian. And he said, I'm going to be in Salt Lake. And if I have any fans in Salt Lake, come see the show. And I was like, that's me.
I'm that guy. He's talking to me.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me? And so I was like, I had this crazy thought, like, we should get Christian on the show. He's amazing. My favorite podcast. I got to get him on the show. So I emailed him, and he was polite enough to agree to come on the show, and I was so happy.
Just said no, like, so quickly. I was like no.
We, after a couple bribes,
threatened to dox him, which is always our most effective tool, I found.
Oh, absolutely. Just dox everybody.
You just send them their own address. That's all you need to do. It's simple.
That's what the ESA does also, so you're on good gaming terms,
Perfect.
He just replies, fine, I'll be there.
Okay, yes.
And so Christian came on the show, and I was trying to tailor our episodes at the time to our guests, thinking, oh gosh, what should I do? And it was end of year, and I was like, we should do best of the year, but I know DLC does a top 5 for the year. They hadn't done that episode yet. And I was like, guys, we can't do that.
We can't, because we had nothing to plagiarize at that point, so we couldn't do best stuff.
Yeah. I was like, he'll never come on if we're like, hey, Christian, one of your most anticipated episodes of the year on your podcast, why don't you come over here and ruin it 2 weeks before you do that?
Do a warm-up. Do a warm-up on our show.
Give us your fake top 5.
That's kind of that you think that I've decided on my top 5 yet. Like, that list comes in hot every year. Every year that list comes in hot.
Right during the episode, he's crossing stuff out and rewriting in new things.
Usually, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you never know, because we had a few Blursties noms coming right under the wire.
On my drive over here.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, and take this how you will, Christian. But I was like, what if we did, because I'm trying to tailor the episodes to our guests, and I was like, what if we did a worst of? And I know that sounds bad, but at the time, Christian Spicer, his co-host, is Jeff Kanata, who is like known for like, I love everything. And Christian was like the sour grapes of the show, so to speak, which is to say he was pretty normal, but he didn't love everything. Yes. And so, which actually, fun side note, in my opinion, I don't know if this is the same for you, Christian, but it has changed over the last year. I'm like, why is Christian like everything? And Jeff's like, nah, I don't really like that. So
I like to refer to us as, instead of sour grapes, I was more of like a Sour Patch Kid, right? So I start off sour, but now I'm sweet. So that's what it is. It's
That
been
is-
And
just
Jeff's
suck
like
through.
he's like an everlasting gobstopper, and we're just on a certain flavor right now. We don't know which one it is.
Right.
Different flavor of Christian.
Yeah, you never know. He's got to keep working at it.
So Christian inspired the Blursties. He was our first Blursties guest. And now, honest to goodness, it is my most anticipated episode we do. It's my favorite episode. It's the funnest. So
We've been tracking this all year long.
Yep.
Got to keep track of it. So, if we haven't made it abundantly clear, these are our worst of for the entire gaming industry for 2019, and we're going to do this as a 2-part episode. We have our first part.
There's too many to do as one parter.
Yep.
Oh, we got a lot
That's
of
what we
nominations.
determined early on. Is there's just so much.
We're coming for you.
Yeah. So I will read the categories we're going to go over today. Let you know the categories we're going over next week, and then we'll get it kicked off. So today we are going to be going over worst name, biggest disappointment, most overrated, least favorite character, and worst sequel. And then next week we'll be doing with Jackson. We'll be doing worst studio, worst decision, worst launch, worst writing, and worst gamer rage.
So tune in. It is going to be hot takes left and right.
But let's get those hot
And
takes
then
kicked off.
the week after that is worst episode of the Blursties, like part 1 or part 2.
Yes. And you get to vote on that one.
We are radically transparent, and that includes reviewing ourselves and being honest with our own. That's the end of your review of the podcast itself,
my
where
gosh.
we rank our episodes individually and just roast ourselves. It is relentless. All right, so our first category.
Wait, we got to start off positive, though.
Oh my
We
goodness!
got to start off on a positive note, JD. So,
I was so eager to get negative.
oh my, this is why we do kudos at the beginning. Playing a sound clip.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Kudos is our positivity segment in which we kick things off. This is, like Peterson said, the most negative episode of the entire year.
Which
so,
is saying a lot because we love to throw shade where shade is
deserved.
And
I hope you two guys have some great kudos for us. So let's hear them.
Christian, do you want to kick us off with kudos?
I'd love to. If you listen to DLC, oftentimes at the end of that show, we recommend something that's not a game. And my recommendation is often music. And that's what this is going to be. Very recently, depending on when this goes out, but here at the very end of the year, Georgia Mack, who is the lead singer of Camp Cope, who's an Australian punk band, she released a solo album called Pleaser, and it is absolutely phenomenal. The second song on the album, Driving Blind, is my current favorite, but the album, top to bottom, is just incredible. Camp Cope is much more of a punk, crunchy sound, and for her first solo album, it has kind of some 80s synth to it. It's about love and loss and coming to terms with who you are, and I can't recommend it enough. It's Georgia Mack's first solo album called Pleaser.
That's Georgia Mack, just spelled the way it sounds.
M-A-Q.
M-A-Q. Got it.
Gotta have something fancy.
M-A-Q.
Also, I've got to say, Christian, how much I appreciate someone else describing music as crunchy. I feel like I'm the only person that uses that word. And when I do, people look at me weird. And I'm like, they're like, dude, what does that mean? I'm like, well,
It's crunchy. What do you
it's
mean? What does it
crunchy.
mean?
It's crunchy. It means crunchy. I don't know.
It means you can pour milk in it and then go to the bathroom and come back and it's still tasty. It's clear what it means.
I'm stealing that. I'm going to start using that.
Yes.
God, I don't know how else to say it. It's going to stay crunchy.
Yeah, it's got to stay crunchy.
All right, so I've got a positive kudos, and this one came in really late. So yesterday I read a really great news story, and today another one along the same vein. So I'm going to kind of talk about both of them quickly. The first one is, I guess, so my kudos is for companies who are doing the right thing.
Ooh.
In 2019, we don't see that enough in the news cycle. Hey, hey, guys, listen.
Peterson's in HR.
I work at Boeing. We are not looking great in the news cycle these days. So hearing a positive story about a company doing the right thing, I love it. I work in HR. I have to love it. So I love it.
It's going to be weird when this episode comes out and it either goes, I work for, and then there's a gap, or it gets edited and it goes, I used to work for. Like, I'm not sure.
I work for beep.
I can neither conform nor deny my involvement with the Boeing Company or any of its affiliates.
No, Peterson podcasts entirely under an alias, so he can just badmouth his employer.
Just my last name. No one will ever guess.
Wait, now everyone will guess. You've totally done this the wrong way.
Damn it!
I ruined it. Oh, I'll turn in my 2 weeks notice on Monday. I'm screwed. So the first one is a family called the Reimann family out of Germany. They own a company or own majority shares in a company called JAB Holding. Now, the story doesn't start off super positive because they did some research into their company's history, and they really wanted everything. And if you're not familiar with this company, the brands they own are like Krispy Kreme, Panera Bread, Keurig, so a lot of well-known brands. They did some research into their history.
It's going to be Nazis.
Is Nazis.
It's Nazis!
Dude, so their executives were big Hitler and Nazi party supporters,
Of course.
who took forced labor from prisoner of war camps and other people who were taken from their homes in Nazi territory. So they looked at this and said, we got to do something. You know what I mean? This
isn't going to get us a kudos.
And this wasn't like a news story coming out and they're responding to it. This is them. Like, they kind of knew some of this, and so they did some research, and they said, we're doing this. So they're donating $11 million to institutions that help forced laborers and their families.
Ooh.
So they're going out and finding those people who were in forced labor camps, and they're essentially paying for their expenses, paying for them to live. So a lot of these people are in their 80s, not wealthy families. They're struggling with medical costs and all that stuff. They're paying for all of that. They've found, I think it said 838 people that they're.
But this was like an internal thing, so
Yeah.
they could have just ignored this, just literally buried it, and
or
been like,
just said nothing, right?
Ooh.
Because it's a huge company. It's a big brand in Germany. People know.
So we're not going to be updating our About Us page. We're just going to slide that under the.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
That's awesome.
They didn't have to do it, I
Right?
guess
No,
is the
that's
thing.
so cool. Good
And
for them.
so that's the first one. Really, it's just a really positive thing, just trying to help out where they can. The other one I read about today, and I love this. A company called, no one's ever heard of, right? It's called St. John Properties out of, I think, Minnesota or something like that. Or Maine. I think it was Maine. Some M. They're all
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota.
That covers two of them.
All of our Maine fans are like super pissed at me right now. Minnesota?
Oh, no.
Are you kidding me?
They're from Arkansas.
We're gonna piss off a lot of them. We'll
How
get
many
them
more
all.
states can we get? Morgan. So they they set a goal in 2005 that they wanted to double their holdings, their land that they had, and they projected this would take 40 years.
Right.
It took 15. And so they had their company holiday party. All the employees are there. 198 employees, not a huge company. And the CEO gets up. They had a video on the news story. CEO gets up and he's like, well, you guys, we had an amazing year. We've hit all our goals. Like, this is incredible. Couldn't have done it without our employees. And they give a fund, $10 million fund for the employees' bonuses. And it's based off of, so there's 198 employees are splitting essentially $10 million.
Ooh.
And so that averages about $50,000 per employee just as a bonus. But it was based on like seniority. And so like the longest tenured employee got $270,000 bonus. And this wasn't the executives, right?
I was
This
going to
is
say,
like,
does the CEO knows
No,
he
no,
can
no,
just keep this all and buy himself a second yacht,
This
right?
isn't
He
the
knows
video
that.
game industry,
That
JD.
is his moral imperative as a businessman. 2 yachts.
to double yacht. So yeah, just an awesome thing. There's a video. The employees are crying, and the party turns to chaos, right? Because everyone's crying and hugging and going up and hugging all the leadership. And I don't know. In this day and age, I love to see a story like this where a company is just doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Making a ton of money.
I don't
and they're
know.
like, we're going to split it.
I've watched both seasons of Ozark, so I have some questions.
Wait,
Starting from that frame of reference.
rethinking everything. I am. My
I didn't think
kudos
about it
is
that
on
way.
hold. I'm going to do some research into.
I'm glad you have some positive company news for us because the Blursties was very heavy on some studios, but we'll get into that. Well, let's start.
Let's do the Blursties. So you got to kick us off with our Blursty. So the Blursties were named after this clip specifically.
Okay, we'll play it.
Don't ask me how we got there.
This is 1,000 monkeys working at 1,000 typewriters. Soon, they'll have written the greatest novel known to man. Let's see. It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey. Oh, shut up.
Obscure Simpsons references, like we're all in on that. So that's what the Blursties. That's where the Blursties came from. I don't know. It was something that Spencer always used to say because obscure Simpsons references. That was our jam. That was we loved that. So when he started to call everything the blurst instead of the worst, that caught on, and here
then
we
Christian, and then it all just came together.
It all came together, and now we do the Blursties. I mean, I'm not biased or anything, but I think it's a little bit better than the Razzies. I mean,
everyone thinks it's better than the Razzies.
Even the Razzies think
kidding?
it's better than the Razzies.
We got a lovely note from them saying how jealous they were. It was crazy.
It was a big honor. So let's start off with our first category, which is worst name. Does anyone want to kick us off? Do they think they have the worst name?
Ooh, I'm going to jump in here. And maybe this is a little bit of a softball.
Mm-hmm.
So my nomination for worst name is Gears 5. And here's why. What?
So lazy.
It's so lazy.
It's so lazy.
The series is called Gears of War.
But its players they fondly
It's
refer to
Gears.
it as Gears. It's Gears. They call it Gears.
And they're just like, you know what?
Let's just call it what the fans call it.
It's Gears 5 now. And it's just lazy. It's the same as like if Call of Duty, the next Call of Duty was just like, you know
COD
what?
2.
We're just going to be called COD 2. And that's what they put on there.
Yep.
Right?
And everyone's like, what is that? What is it? Is it a fishing game? Is that the idea?
COD, yeah.
COD, yeah.
Just stick to your brand, Gears of War. What are you doing?
Gears 5.
Just say Gears of War. You don't have to say Gears
Next
5.
one's just G6. It's going to be very, very confusing.
Just a 6. Just a big 6.
A 6 and then the 6 upside down, so it kind of looks like a G.
Or, I mean, 6s look like G's anyways, JD.
Christian, what would you say is the worst name of 2019?
I mean, for me, it'd probably be the Blursties.
The Blursties are getting a nomination.
What about what the Razzies said to us? They were so nice about it.
For me, my nomination would be New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe.
Wait, did you want to throw any more words in there?
Was that the whole thing?
Dude, I mean, one, phenomenal game. I love my Switch. I loved that game on Wii U. I thought it was an awkward naming convention back on the Wii U, and I understand where it came from, right? Like, it's harkening back to the nostalgia of when I was a kid and you had Mario Brothers, then Super Mario Brothers, because it was on the Super Nintendo.
Right.
And then they kind of carried a lot of that stuff forward with 64 versions of games, right? Like Mario 64.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tried to even do that with Smash Brothers, where it's like Smash Brothers 4 Wii U or whatever, and it's like 4 FOR, but FOUR. And they wanted to port over New Super Mario Bros. Or I guess was the NES Mario called Super Mario Brothers? It wasn't it?
Yeah, I think
But
so.
then they did Super Metroid, which was on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And Metroid, anyway, it's confusing. And this is a re-release of a port of the Wii U version, but it still has the U in it, but then they added a deluxe, but they still called it new, even though there's no way it's new because New Super Mario Brothers was, and I mean, it's just all of the things that go wrong with trying to name games, in my opinion.
This is the same team that names Kingdom Hearts games.
It's got to be.
They brought him in as a ringer. Like, these guys can do it. Here's the question is, what do they call the Switch version? Is it Mario Bros. Switch, or is it Switch Mario Bros? Or is it Mario
This
Switch
is the Switch
Bros?
version.
This was the Switch version. That's exactly the problem. The deluxe meant it was on the Switch.
Oh, my God. But what if they made a new one? If they made a new one that was
super new,
you
Super
start a
Mario
new
Bros.
naming standard. If it's Switch Mario Bros, everyone's going to think Mario's going to wear green. Are the Mario's brothers actually switched?
Yeah, this one is so confusing. Also, just as a side note, I believe the announcement trailer for this game back in 2018 was how we ended up with Bowsette.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where Peachette came from.
This is the origin of Bowsette, this game.
The announcement trailer for this game on the Switch.
Yes, you're right. Excellent. Okay, so here's one. This is rare. Mine is very rare because not often do we have Blursties coming in under the wire that are just like leading candidates.
Blursty bait.
It's Blursty bait, man. When companies are making announcements in the beginning of December, like right at the tail end of the year, right when they know we're recording the Blursties, it's Blursty bait.
On, guys.
We know that's what's going on, and so Microsoft,
they did it again.
They did it again. You son of a bitch! Microsoft has released or announced the next Xbox, the fourth iteration of the Xbox, will be called the Xbox Series X.
Like the Xbox One X? Or wait.
I'm sorry, the Xbox Series X.
Smart.
This is going to be the bane of every single grandmother whose child or grandchild asks them to buy an Xbox in holiday season 2020.
You want an Xbox?
Yeah.
Or Xbox One?
Oh.
Xbox One S.
Oh, there's
One X.
Oh, there's both of those?
Yeah, no.
Oh, I think it's the newest one. Is that the Xbox One SX?
Oh, man.
Because it's the Xbox Series X. So
Yep.
do you abbreviate that to Xbox SX? And not to mention, what do we get in about 6 years when they're like, we're going to reboot this console, we're going to give it a refresh and make it nicer? What are they going to call it? The Xbox Series X1?
Oh, God.
Come on! It's Blursty bait. That's exactly what this is. So I guess I would argue it's the worst name since the Wii U for a console, if not the worst name for a console. But
this is what we expected. Let's be honest. We knew every single time their project name for it, Project Scarlet, Scorpio.
Oh, it sounds dope.
So much better.
Oh, it sounds dope.
So cool. And then we knew. Guys, I think we had hope, but we knew that they were going to blow it.
So Xbox Series X, that's great. Okay, and then finally we're
doing something a little bit different this year.
I love this.
I reached out to our fan base, and I said, "Would you guys like to make some nominations?" And emphatically, they came back and said, "Absolutely, let's do this." So we had some of our fans do a recording and make a nomination. So this one for worst name, we're going to play it in a second, comes from the Silverthorn themselves.
Let's do this.
If it isn't the Itty 3-Bitty Video Game Committee. I was wondering when my presence would be required. This is, of course, the Silverthorn, but I'm sure you're all woefully aware. I'm calling in to opine on the worst name category. My nomination is The Outer Wilds, the only correct answer. The game was initially released in summer, but came out to PS4 in October, right beside The Outer Worlds. The two games, being so similarly named, destroyed all the discussion about Wilds, causing confusion, long drawn-out explanations as to the difference between them, and leaving The Outer Worlds to collect all the mindshare. Even the Wikipedia page for the game states, not to be confused with The Outer Worlds. Thank you, Internet Knowledge Factory, for proving my point. I rest my case. I'll be in touch.
Wow. Okay, first of all, Silverthorn. The best part about this is our coolest named fan is nominating for the worst name. The
Beautiful.
Silverthorn is nominating worst name.
Did you plan that?
No.
Excellent.
No. So, Christian, the Silverthorn nominated The Outer Wilds for the worst name. Do you have thoughts about this?
Well, I think first, every silver rose has a silver thorn. We all know that. So
Come on. This is why we got to have you on here.
Daniel's going to love that.
This checks out.
We just whiff on these sometimes.
But I don't. I agree to disagree. I have a hard time labeling Outer Wilds as the worst named game if they don't also then argue that Outer Worlds is also the equally worst named game, right? They're both bad because they're both so similar. If only one existed, it'd be an incredible game. They both seem to describe what the game is about and what you do in the game and are pretty descriptive and evocative. It just stinks that they came out around the same time for the same consoles and broadly, only in the most broadest terms, are similar. Right? Like, if you actually look at them, they're very different games, different genres, but at the big, broad level of like general consumers, like, oh, you're kind of exploring and you're on an adventure and you're going from planet to planet in a ship. Which one is that? Both of them. But I agree that it is a poorly named game, but I think it is a victim of circumstance more than adding a U and a deluxe to something.
Oh, absolutely. It's so sad because both of these are incredible games.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If one was just a piece of shit, like, forget about it. That's easy, but...
This is Armageddon situation all over again, releasing two things that are too similar.
Hey, you don't diss on my Deep Impact like that. Come on, give me a break.
So, great nomination. We're gonna make
Frodo
it so it's... Okay, get off of Deep Impact. This is not a Deep Impact podcast. So Outer Worlds, Outer Wilds coming out simultaneously is unfortunate.
Yeah, not the best.
I think it took a little bit away from both of them because they were both great games.
Yeah. Okay, next category. This is biggest disappointment, the biggest letdowns we had. And I have to start on this because...
Okay.
Mine was the biggest disappointment. Because I waited for mine for 14 years, you guys. This is Kingdom Hearts 3. This is the 14-year sequel to 2005's Kingdom Hearts 2, with 9 games in between them. I was so excited. I bought it, played it day one. I beat it within a couple weeks. And, I mean, I felt like the story was unreachable. Like, even if don't expect me to play 9 games and remember all the characters and all the names from all of them and then bring them in. If you were a
Kingdom Hearts fan, you would have played 9 games, JD.
I guess I'm a shitty fan. I didn't know I had to be doing homework these last 14 years.
Pull your head out.
So I can enjoy my dessert at the end of it because I just didn't get there. I didn't understand who anybody was. And I thought, okay, well, that's fine because it's Kingdom Hearts, and what I'm really in it for is the really unique gameplay, and I really liked that. And it was fun, and it was cool, but other than, like, the Toy Story level, it was another Kingdom Hearts game. And I think it is proof that these long-awaited sequels that everyone, like Half-Life 3, that everyone's like, we want this, we really want this.
It's not going to live up.
It's impossible. This is impossible.
I don't know.
You think
Shenmue 3 says hello.
Oh, that's a good point. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure it lived up to expectations of being mediocre, just like the first 2 Shenmues.
I thought you were coming in hot with as a diehard Shenmue fan, and so I just backed off because those guys scared the shit out of me.
Well, they're going to drive a forklift over you. You know,
they're so practiced; they've been driving forklifts for decades. This is what I do. Okay, what were your guys' biggest disappointments?
Christian, why don't you go next?
I mean, I think I'll answer for the listeners. It's my return to the Blursties. You know, it's
biggest disappointment. This is the biggest disappointment is that you're not on episode 2 of the Blursties.
No, I think it just didn't live up to the first one. You can't recreate, lightning in a bottle and all that. I had 2 that I was thinking about, but I'm going to go with one of them, and it might show up again later in my list as well. But for me personally, it's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And it's not because I think it is a bad game per se. I know that Ubisoft kind of threw it under the bus in some financial statement or investor calls, and I think retooled or delayed some games in lieu of its performance. But I was a huge fan of the first to the first Ghost Recon. That's weird. The prior Ghost Recon, the one that Breakpoint was the sequel to.
That one?
And it just didn't click for me. I really was excited for it. I like bringing in John Berthal, how you say his last name. I thought he fit in the universe well and what they were doing, and look at like the motion cap they had for him was cool. I liked the idea, like the fantasy island they were creating of like this, tech billionaire island gone awry. And then I sat down to play it, and it just felt like disconnected fetch quests without any real through line pulling me through. So to me, it felt like work, and I walked away from it very disappointed.
Yeah, and I think you're not the only one. Ghost Recon Wildlands, which came out 2 years before that.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and looked at like the scores of that, just on a quick Google Google reviews, which of course are infallible.
Right, that you can't do better than Google.
But
reviews.
they had a 94% for Wildlands. And then 2 years later, Breakpoint had a 62%.
Yikes!
So you're right. It just didn't have the same feel. It just wasn't as fun.
They changed a lot. They got rid of AI companions. The way that you leveled gear, or that fact that gear leveled was very different from the first one. So sometimes a sequel in name only works really well, and it helps reinvent the franchise. But I think, unfortunately, for Breakpoint, it was more misses than hits.
Yep. No, great nomination. I'll jump in, and this is a bit of news that happened in January that I am still bitter about. In fact, probably more bitter about now. It is EA canceling the Star Wars game.
I'd almost forgotten about this. Thanks a lot.
I will never let you forget.
Thanks a lot. I especially in lieu of the Jedi Fallen Order going so well.
That's why.
This is the dagger in my heart.
So, just some background if you're unfamiliar. EA shut down in 2017, I believe. They shut down Visceral, who was working on a project called Project Ragtag, which was their linear action-adventure Star Wars game.
Sure.
Under director Amy Hennig, who has done some amazing things.
Yeah.
And so they shut down Visceral, handed the game over. So that was disappointment number one. And then they handed it over to EA Vancouver, who essentially gutted the game.
Right.
They used art assets and turned it into an open-world game, which was already kind of disappointing. And then they were just like, you know what? The Blursties just came out. We got some nominations for 2018 for sure.
EA has this giant shelf that they've created for all their Blursties nominations, and they're like, man, we got to fill this thing up.
What are we going to do? And they started early by just straight up shutting down Project Ragtag, which honestly sounded incredible, like the little bit that we had. That's what we want. We want single-player Star Wars games, and so for me, that was a huge disappointment.
Do you think this was like a high target Blursty for them? Because EA's like, what's one thing that's really hard for us to do in this day and age is disappoint people. Because everyone has such a low opinion of us that, like, how can we let them down? But you guys did it. Congratulations. You let us down. All right. So our fan nomination for biggest disappointment comes from Phil. So we're going to give that a listen.
Hey there, 3-Bit Gamer Show. Phil here, your favorite bidiot, straight from Pittsburgh. I have a Blursty nomination in the biggest disappointment category. I'd feel remiss if I didn't nominate the game I've loved most to crap on since February. I'm talking, of course, of EA's disastrous letdown, Anthem. Side note, this is a nomination for biggest industry disappointment, not personal disappointment, because, like the gaming prophet I am, I just knew it was going to disappoint, so I never got it. But why Anthem? Well, if you're one of the unfortunate souls that bought it, you may have enjoyed it for a handful of hours, but it wasn't long before you realized what an unfinished, shallow, load-screen-ridden mess it actually was. And the final nail in the coffin, you could pick up this monumental game brand new during Black Friday this year for a whopping $5. Clearly a game that wowed the industry, let me tell you. Thanks for the opportunity to give my nomination. I look forward to the Blursties every year. Catch you again soon.
EA coming in hot with another
Double
nomination.
This is what they wanted.
Game. And honestly, if Phil didn't say it, I would say it. Anthem was Anthem looked so cool. During all the trailers and the reveals, looked really great.
As a society, we have been conditioned to just instinctively like Anthem because we've been watching Iron Man and slowly like falling in love with him over a decade, or quickly falling in love with him. And so they're like, hey, you want to be Iron Man in a game with a bunch of other Iron Mans? Yep. And then...
So I played Anthem. I was so excited for it. I played it and actually really enjoyed it. For kind of like Phil said, I enjoyed it for a few hours until I then started to get annoyed with the game.
Right.
The load screens, not just the amount of load screens, but the time on each load screen was genuinely unbearable. I would sit through them and I would know that I needed to walk through the like town area and would just dread doing that.
See, that was the most shocking. So I didn't play this game, but when you guys said that you had to go back to the main base after every mission, that blew my mind. I was like, that is the most hostile user experience in a game. Like, that is so regressive.
And if you joined a mission, you had to stay on that mission or else it was like over. If you like
just like PlayStation 2 shit right there.
Yeah, it would tell you were too far away and teleport you back to the mission.
Oh my god.
Christian, did you play Anthem?
I did play Anthem, and I also read Jason Schreier's excellent, it's basically an extra chapter of his book that he did on Kotaku about kind of the development and the process that, resulted in the version of the game that we got. It's a shame because there's a lot to like in that core gameplay. Flying felt good. The combat I thought was engaging. The world that they were building was compelling. But all of the little pieces, and I have not touched it in, it feels like decades. Right?
2019's been so long.
Yeah, so I don't know how it's maybe been retooled, and there's the rumor that they're going to kind of try to do a re-break, maybe Destiny 2, or not even a sequel, I guess, but a big reboot of it here pretty soon. It's just unfortunate the way you were in first person in your hub world, but then there was also the show off dance lobby area, and you couldn't respec mid mission, so you'd pick up cool loot, but you couldn't use it.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Constant load times where you'd be going in and out of instances, like you'd fly into a cave and it'd load, and it was just stuff that didn't seem acceptable for that style of game anymore when Destiny had already made several mistakes but improved upon them, and the Division was doing it so well. There were already games that were doing that genre better, that it felt like Anthem was too little too late, which is unfortunate because BioWare, I think they're still an incredible studio there, right? And I'd love to see them make something that gets everybody excited again.
I read that Jason Schreier article, and I would have loved if they would have just been given the freedom to continue working on it, kind of as that passion project, how it started. I know it would have taken tons of money and time, but it just seems like the ideas they had and they wanted to execute on without the pressure of delivery sounded incredible.
Yeah,
and that's what we want.
I think that when you say like the Division and Destiny had made these mistakes prior, I think judging from that piece, I think the Anthem devs were well aware of that, but they were shackled to Frostbite. They were shackled to all these politics that were going on within the company, and they couldn't overcome them because you're basically trying to ship a game. That's all they cared about, was actually shipping a game that people could play. Like, forget making it playable.
Oh, EA, you're killing me.
Okay. All right. Next up, we've got most overrated. Peterson, yours is screaming hot, so why don't you just start?
Okay, this is a hot take, and I went back and forth on whether I should do this or not, and then I was like, you know what? No, this is my Blursty nomination. I get to say whatever I want, and you guys have to listen. So, my nomination is for WoW Classic. So,
Ooh.
WoW Classic was something that people had been asking for so long. People wanted WoW. Give us vanilla WoW. They made classic servers that people would join and play in, right? Everyone wanted that WoW experience that they had back in 2005, right? And Blizzard finally said, okay.
I thought it went well.
Here you go. Here's the thing. It went well.
Yeah.
So many people jumped in. And they were like, this is awesome. and then they stopped playing. Everyone, I mean, I'm not going to say everyone, but
Right.
everyone I know
Yeah.
bounced off of it after a month or two. And whenever they would talk about it, and this is why I think it's overrated, whenever they would talk about it, it always felt like they were trying to convince you or themselves that this was a great experience, that they were loving this.
Because they had to prove Blizzard wrong, because Blizzard told them for years they didn't want it, and they're like, see, Blizzard, we wanted it. And then 2 months later, they're like, we wanted it.
I genuinely think some good times were had. I'm not saying this was like
Yeah.
a terrible experience. Some good times were had, but people bounced off because this is not a 2019 game.
Yeah.
Right? If this was not WoW and you released this in 2019, it would get booed off the stage, right? No one would play it. They would freak out that everything it wasn't good enough. The UI wasn't good enough, and the systems that they're used to in WoW just didn't exist. It was a lackluster game. This is my opinion. I think it's overrated. I think people are wanting to love it so much that they're trying to convince themselves they love it.
Okay. That's white hot.
Christian, do you have a take on this?
On your WoW Classic pick or just in
WoW
general?
Classic pick. On my pick.
I mean, I think everything you said is correct, but I also think that people like that. As someone who has the Mega SG, the analog Mega SG, and is hoping to be able to buy their Pocket, or whatever it's called, analog Pocket, like their Game Boy, like I do crave playing old games again from my youth, even though they're not the best version. I went and rebought Virtua Racing for Genesis, even though I have it on Saturn. I have it on Switch, the excellent port that was just done for Switch, which I think is the definitive version of the game. But to me, the Genesis version is very nostalgic of like, I can't believe they did this on Genesis. It's so cool to play it like this. And so I understand that I'm a type of gamer that never got into the MMORPG as like my core thing that I, kind of fawned over. But if you did, I understand how it could be hard to not have the nostalgia version to go back to, right? Like I'm able to go play Streets of Rage 2 again as I remember it when I was a kid. Is it the best brawler? I mean, yes, it is. That's a bad example.
Yeah, I was going to say Streets of Rage
brawler,
3 is kind of the garbage one.
But, I'm able to have that experience again. And I think, now I do. So I understand and I agree with everything you said, but I also foresee a lot of people 10, 15 years from now being excited about Fortnite Classic, right? Ooh. And like, is it the best version of the game? No,
that's what I played when I was a kid.
Yeah, all the new stuff they've added is really cool, I think. But there will be something simple and very nostalgic about all you can do in this is shoot and build. Yep. So I agree. It would not hold water as a 2019 game. But that's not what it is. It's a memory that plays better than you think it does.
This is every single Dreamcast game I play. That's a perfect description for every single Dreamcast game I play.
Hey,
is this
easy
the best version?
Now. Easy.
No,
easy.
But I love it to death. Yes. Christian, what was your most overrated for the year?
Borderlands 3. Ooh. And I'm not sure how rated it is. I think it reviewed pretty well. I know people were very excited about it. And to me, I think I would take a lot of what you said about WoW Classic and I apply it to Borderlands 3, but it is a game for 2019.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed the franchise for Borderlands 1 and 2, and I feel like had Borderlands 3 come out a year after Borderlands 2, it maybe would have stuck its landing a little better, but I feel like for it to get as much hype as it got, an initial buzz, and I think general reviews, I think people were blinded by nostalgia, for a new game, because it was just kind of delivering the same hits with an outdated sense of humor.
Yeah, that is kind of how it feels a little bit.
It wasn't, and I guess this was they kind of said this from the start, but it wasn't different enough. This was another Borderlands game. But it just, you're right. It just didn't.
Long-awaited third entries in series. Risky.
Pump it out 2 years later.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, you get that out in 2 years or it's dead.
Give us the COD model.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so for me, my most overrated thing of 2019 was this fellow named Dennis Durkin.
Who's Dennis Durkin?
Who's Dennis Durkin, you ask? Well, I can't believe you would ask such a silly question because Dennis Durkin is apparently the most brilliant financial mind of a generation because Activision Blizzard hired this guy as their newest CFO back
Here comes
in
the soapbox.
back
Here
in
we
January.
go. Buckle up.
And they cut him a $15 million bonus on top of his nearly $1 million salary and $1.35 million target bonus. And then a month later, our highly rated Dennis Durkin laid off 800 people at Activision
Where
Blizzard.
do you think that bonus is coming from? Come on, JD.
His first job was paying for his own bonus. He's where you got to fight.
We've all seen Office Space. They bring the Bobs in. Stuff's going down. Like
Yeah.
The Durkins. They bring in the Durkins.
They bring in Durkin. What would you say you do here? And so this guy, I can't believe that they just brought in a ringer to just gut their staff.
And here's the thing. I understand the business need to gut the staff, but the timing of it all and the optics of it all is so
No, this guy
poor.
was brought in to cut staff. That's his job. And he was
yeah.
brought in as a hatchet man. And they're like, you're going to go. And so it's like, this is how much this hatchet work, this wet work is worth to us. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to need, I don't get out of
You're
bed.
right.
I don't get out of bed for less than $10 million. I'm not going to ruin 800 people's lives unless you pay me. You cross my palm with silver. So I do think, just like any athlete that is paid way, way more than he deserves, Dennis Durkin, overrated. Activision Blizzard probably could have done better. But maybe they couldn't.
Maybe they did just as good as they deserved.
No, maybe Dennis Durkin is rated. All right, so our listener our listener nomination comes from Abby. We're going to play that right now.
Hey guys, this is Abby, and I am nominating for Most Overrated Death Stranding, starring Norman Reedus and the Fetus. Reason why I'm nominating it is because it got so much hype, and it ended up being really boring. Some people love it because it wastes time. Not sure.
Yes.
Anyways, thank you, and I can't wait to hear this.
So if Abby hadn't nominated Death Stranding, it would have been I might have had to get off my soapbox and not talk about Dennis Durkin.
Thank you, Abby, for providing JD the soapbox to get on.
Death Stranding, come on. Is any game, I mean, this was a shoo-in for Most Overrated 2019 game back in 2017, 2016, 2015. This has been just waiting, just cooking.
Here's the thing.
Well, actually, it's been walking. It's just taking a very long time to get there. Like it's
a very awkward stroll where you're dropping lots of packages, some of which are irretrievable.
There was one rock between it and the Blursties, and it just took a few years to get around that rock.
Damn it, I can't get this ladder right at all. What the hell?
Well, I guess we better set down 9 packages so I can work on this.
Make sure you're holding your triggers, otherwise you'll drop your packages.
Here's the thing about Death Stranding. We all were anxiously awaiting this game to see what it was.
The greatest video game of all time. Of course.
And that's the thing. I think it is overrated because people came in so hot saying, this game is incredible. It's changed my life. It's a game changer, right? And then other people came in and said, what is this? This is so boring. I can't finish. We had reviewers saying they couldn't finish their gameplay because they just didn't want to anymore.
Name a game that could, a past game that's just like an incredible game that's already come out that could have actually lived up to the hype that came with Death Stranding. Like, Halo 2 maybe. I mean, what are like these absolutely earth-shattering games?
You just don't understand Death Stranding.
I just don't know many games that could have ever lived up to the hype that this game had. And this game came out very aggressively being what it was. It was very Death Stranding. It was a Strand type game.
A Strand type?
Get out. How I can't. If you think that your game deserves and is its own genre from the jump and you don't let someone else say that, that's like giving yourself a nickname. Get out of here.
Yeah, dude, I give myself nicknames all the time.
Cool guy, best dude, Joe Schmo.
Yeah, the Spice Man agrees.
I love hearing from the Spice Man. Oh, what a cool. I wonder who gave him that nickname because it must have been a cool guy. All right. Okay, so is that it? Did I get it?
Yep, that's overrated.
I don't want to skip anyone. Okay, so our second to last category is least favorite character.
Let's start off with Lynn's. Do you want to start with Lynn's?
Yeah,
and I'm gonna say, hang on. So Lynn is one of our regular co-hosts who we asked her to make a nomination for this. She recorded us a message. It's a little long, but
it's very Lynn.
It's very Lynn.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary, over a many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly nappy, suddenly there was a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately colonel of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obstinance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mine lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Guy Fieri, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ivory man beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the spicy and seasoned decorum of the countenances wore. "Though thy crest be silver-foxed and suited, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient colonel, wandering from the culinary shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the 11 herbs and spices thou bore." Quoth the colonel, "Nevermore." "Colonel," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if chef or devil, by the heaven that bends above us, by the God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant kitchen it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels named Fried Chicken. Clasp the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Fried Chicken." Quoth the colonel, "Nevermore." "Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend," I shrieked, upstarting. "Get thee back to the tempest and to the 11 herbs and spices shore. Leave no mashed potatoes as a token that thy lie, thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy spatula from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door." Quoth the colonel, "Nevermore." And then the colonel, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Guy Fieri just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is draining, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
Whew, all
Dude,
right.
We
got there.
I gotta give an award for that. Whatever. Wow. If you guys didn't put that together, Lynn's nomination for her least favorite character that she told us via Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven is Colonel Sanders from
the KFC game.
The KFC dating sim.
So, also, really quickly, my favorite part about that...
I love you, Colonel Sanders, a finger-licking good dating sim.
Yikes.
No wonder I struck that from my memory. I was like, why don't I remember the name? Yes, that's why.
That's why. My favorite part of that was Lynn's cats in the background.
Just one cat. It's Mark, not Kevin.
Her cats' names are Mark and Kevin. Those are terrible cat names. Also classic Lynn. So Lynn and I had the pleasure of, for one of the episodes she was on, of playing the Colonel Sanders game.
Dating sim game, yes.
Yeah, I lost.
Developed by KFC probably my favorite video game developer out there.
Best studio,
Bat in
2019.
1,000, honestly.
So they provided us something that none of us ever wanted in Sexy Sanders.
Sexy Colonel Sanders.
And
Anime Colonel Sanders.
And he was, not only was he like a little bit oversexed in this game, he was very cocky and kind of rude because he's like teasing you the whole time, like, oh yeah, you want to get in on this 11 herbs and spices? And you're like, yes, please. And he's like, no, your cooking's not good enough.
Yeah.
I just lost the game, and I was like, you know what? Screw you, Sanders.
Dude, look, here's the thing. In America, Colonel Sanders is just another greasy, shitty chicken joint. In Japan, where this game, I assume, they came up with it, it is like this national holiday that they eat KFC on Christmas, and KFC is a big cultural thing. And so KFC and the Colonel, by association, knows the hold he has, and so of course he's more cocky in his Japanese iteration. Yeah. He's not KFC that gives you greasy shits. He's KFC, the beacon of a nation.
Oh wow!
I'm so sorry.
Did you get to play this game, Christian?
I was able to. Did I choose to?
It is free on Steam for anyone.
Still seems like too expensive.
Oh, wait, they're not giving me free chicken to play this game?
No,
I'm out.
Christian, who is your least favorite character?
I think it
2019
rolled pretty well off of Overrated and Abby's nomination there. And I, as someone who did not finish Death Stranding, I would say except for Sam, I think I'd nominate every character I encountered in Death Stranding. I just and I'll depending again on when this has come out, I've either already talked about this on DLC or I will soon. I can heap a lot of praise on Death Stranding, but like Dead Man, Dead, and Ahmed Man, Dude. Like for me, I was able to suspend my disbelief in Metal Gear because these were huge international terrorists and or government spy ops with corny nickname. Yeah, and then of course the world spun out and became even more ridiculous as the sequels expanded. But for Death Stranding, it opens with like, this is the president's chief of staff, Yeah, and so I didn't find it. I thought the names were off-putting. They were very Kojima, but I thought they were off-putting and weird. And then I did not finish the game, but I didn't enjoy any of them. I didn't want to spend time with them. I didn't find them endearing or engaging or want to unravel their story. I was just like, take your skull mask off, bro. Like we gotta. So I nominate a lot of the cast. The very famous cast of Death Stranding.
It's like Game of Thrones season 8. By the end, you're just like, I kind of don't like any of you. I'm not super invested in any of your stories, and if you all died at the end, I wouldn't care.
Wait, Christian, you didn't fall in love with Die Hard Man?
I mean, as a Die Hard fan, I was surprised that I did it also.
Or Dude. Dead Man or Heart Man.
This is not the names.
Those are
of the
names
characters.
of characters.
And then your character's name,
yeah,
Sam.
Yep. Bridges Porter, because you're a porter and you build bridges.
Oh,
yeah, Sam Porter Bridges.
Come on,
Sam Porter Bridges, or
just punch it right on.
Oh no,
nose
that's Nose Punch Man. You don't meet him until later. I think I didn't get that far. I think that's like hour 60.
Nobody got that far. Peterson, what was your most disappointing?
Okay, so this was my
or I'm sorry, your least favorite character. I'm so sorry.
Okay, my least favorite character of 2019 is first edition Sonic the Hedgehog from the trailer. Not the new one, the old one.
But don't you miss those legs?
So I imagine the executive in charge was like, wait, so Sonic he runs fast, right? Yes. Why has he got those little chicken legs? Chickens aren't fast.
They have chicken legs.
I never seen a fast chicken. I can run faster than a chicken. You know who else faster than a chicken?
Sonic.
Usain Bolt. Let's give him Usain Bolt legs. And they gave us Sonic with muscly, Usain Bolt legs.
Yeah.
And just everything about it was slightly off-putting. I didn't look at it and was like, my gosh. I just looked at it and it was wrong. They just did wrong.
It was a new depth that nobody knew existed within the uncanny valley. There was another secondary valley, and everyone was like, holy shit, didn't know it went this deep.
Everyone knows you don't get 90s Jim Carrey back without getting Sonic with legs of someone you want to sleep with. Like, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, because I watched the original trailer with my hand over the top half of the screen. It was so much sexier like that.
Yeah, I was into it. I'm not gonna
And
lie.
I was like, oh, it's a Sonic movie?
wait, I gotta watch this with my kids.
He's a head. I can't. Unless they CGI pants on him, I cannot comfortably take children to this film. Because, I mean, come on.
Oh, so first edition Sonic, my nomination is for you.
Oh, wait,
All right,
before we
so
move on, can we
I went
kind of
out
like
of
release the Snyder cut?
Yes.
Can you guys be the beginning of the hashtag, like release the sexy leg cut? Like, the world needs to see.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Okay, so here's my question for you, Christian. Do you want the new redesigned waist-up Sonic with the old legs, or do you want the old Sonic just vanilla
I'm a
classic
purist,
Sonic?
so I want...
Yeah.
No, I want...
Yeah,
no,
so we want
I'm
old
a Sonic movie purist. Sorry, that came out wrong. I want Sonic to look like that first trailer. That is my only Sonic. I've patched him into all the games that I have. Mm-hmm. I want sexy-legged, two-eyed, furry as a porcupine's butt. Oh, yeah. I want that Sonic. Give me that.
I am so curious to see what you do, how you take that Sonic and make him 16-bit, how he looks.
Oh, no.
Just looks like the slightly off
I make
Sonic,
him
like the
18-bit,
doppelganger
you know what I mean?
Sonic.
Oh, yeah.
just old enough. Yeah, so I think we could petition for that. I also think, we should be getting that on the DVD. I think that should be in the bonus features.
Incredible.
You can watch the old version and just like vomit through the whole thing.
Immediate cult classic.
Nobody watches the original anymore. They just watch the crappy one. I want the original
Star
Jabba
Wars
the Hutt.
Christmas special
Yes!
all over again.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so mine is a little bit out there because
of course it is.
Of course. I gotta be honest, my least favorite character was not in a video game.
Oh wow.
He was behind the scenes of a video game. This is, you guys all know, my favorite Riot Games employee, Scott Gelb, the COO. Our boy, the famous farter.
He's given us a lot to talk about this year.
This is the COO who was suspended for 2 months without pay, a.k.a. went on a nice, lovely vacation for 2 months, for farting in the faces of his employees.
During meetings. This is like a thing he does.
And he's my least favorite character because last year, he was suspended, and I was like, okay, maybe there's some justice in the world, and maybe in 2019 it's not acceptable to have people farting in your face in the workplace, but no, he just attended an $80,000 Harvard business course that was paid for by Riot Games, took his 2-month vacay, came back, and is now back to work.
He's good to go. He's a changed man.
And if you saw Riot Games' statement on that settlement,
oof,
they don't think they did a damn thing wrong. So
crazy.
Scotty G, my least favorite character of 2019, going strong into 2020.
Scotty G.
All right, so our last category, the last and the worst, I guess, is worst sequel. Christian, why don't you kick us off? What was your worst sequel of 2019?
Was that to me? Sorry. I think you cut out for a second.
Oh.
Yeah, worst sequel of 2019.
Let me roll it in 10. No, just kidding. What's my motivation for this? Could you set the scene a little bit? I need to see who... I talked about it. So for me, and I think there are several, unfortunately, but for me, and I talked about it a little bit earlier in this episode, it's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And I think I think there are probably far worse games that are sequels that came out in 2019. but I think it is the expectations I had for the talent I saw attached to it, and Ubisoft coming off of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was such a high for the studio and for that franchise. I was in Rainbow Six Siege, continuing to get better and better and better, and I feel like they were doing everything right, and then it just tons of misses. I also played it on PC. I signed up for Uplay Plus to play it because I built a fancy new gaming PC and I wanted to, play this version of it. I was in it, right? And
you
then
were dedicated.
I landed in my first instance, like when you start, there's like literally a black rectangle. It basically looked like the Xbox Series X, like on my screen. I was like, what is that big black hole? So I walked over. It was so big, I couldn't fit in my entertainment console. But I walked over, and then I walked into it, and I was in a bunker. Like, I was like, something just didn't load. And then inside the bunker, looking out the windows, it was sunny out. And then I walked out of the bunker, and it was raining. And so it had technical problems in addition to the other problems I described. And I hope it does get better. Ubisoft does have a track record of improving their games. I would love for it to be my, favorite game of 2020, I would love for that to be the case. But as it stands right now, Ghost Recon Breakpoint is my worst sequel.
Okay, I think we'll do our next one from Skylar. Our listener Skylar has submitted his.
Hey everybody, Skylar here, and word on the street is the Blursties are coming up, and I was asked to nominate a game for Worst Sequel of 2019. And although I'm sure this may be an unpopular opinion, I'd like to nominate Kingdom Hearts 3 for the Worst Sequel of 2019. Wait, what? Kingdom Hearts 3, you say? Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it was, and you want to know why? Square and Disney were supposed to make this the iconic end-all to the series, a fan service to make everyone that waited nearly 15 years happy, but all they ended up doing was serving it a coup de grace instead. Did I use that properly? Anyway, the game was short, much shorter than its predecessors. There was no extra content, and most of the beloved Disney character extras this time around all felt like cameos and not actual content. There was no risk involved, the fights were easy, especially if you played it on Peterson mode. I mean, maybe there's just something wrong with the number 3 Half-Life, but the effort put out by the studio was lackluster. Instead of sending the series off on a kick-ass burning pyre floating downstream, they simply forgot to add logs under the hay, and it sunk to the bottom.
I gotta say, we have some of the most articulate, well-spoken listeners in the world. Skylar,
they're gunning for my spot. Get out of here. You can't have it, Skylar.
But I have to agree, Kingdom Hearts 3 has to be on this list for worst sequel. It is, one of the most hyped sequels that came out this year. A game that people have been just clamoring for over a decade. And if it's anything short of amazing, it kind of belongs on this list at that point. And I think,
which is unfortunate, honestly, because this is a beloved franchise.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree with the nomination for worst sequel for this year.
And I think Skylar put it better than I did. Just like all of the things that you listed.
JD's spot, not mine.
Christian, did you happen to play Kingdom Hearts 3 this year?
And I think last year on DLC I talked about how I maybe predicted it would be a Game of the Year contender. I think in that light, I could see how it'd be a worse sequel. You can't live up to those expectations, right? 15 years, numerous non-sequels and remakes and pre-sequels. And I felt like parts of the game felt like they were made 2 years after Kingdom Hearts 2. And like you mentioned, though, the Toy Story level was great. There was greatness in that game. So I understand the critiques and criticisms of it as someone who isn't the biggest Kingdom Hearts fan. I feel like it was better than it had any business being. And I liked seeing all those characters come together. But I also think that, yes, some of the levels felt like PS2 levels and level design and game archetypes that came over. So I understand the point, but I don't necessarily agree with them because I don't have a horse in the race, you know?
Yep. That's fair.
Yeah. I think what you said is perfect. I think the fact that it just couldn't live, it was the hype. If this game had released in a vacuum, I think people would have been like, what a weird game that came out. But that was pretty fun. I like Kingdom Hearts. But
some Disney characters.
Some Disney characters that was kind of out there. But having the hype. And Not to mention, there were essentially like full-length movies that came out too in the interim here. There were hour-long clips or movies that came out that helped supplement the absolutely insane story. So, yeah, that was...
So I'm going to do my nomination next. Mine is a low-hanging fruit nomination. And we've talked about this a couple times this year. NBA 2K20.
Oh yeah, that casino sim game.
It's a basketball game.
Oh,
NBA, yeah, it's basketball.
They put basketball in that casino sim.
So if you haven't been paying attention, this game has been hilarious to follow. First off, it releases, and when it comes out on Steam, the reviews are so bad, and immediately and right away, and these are from people who are like huge NBA fans, the 2K franchise fans. This game came out and they added an insane amount of microtransactions. In the announcement video of this, like the trailer, they not doubled down, they tripled down on the gambling aspect.
It's like 50% of the trailer was like slot machines.
It was a slot machine. There was wasn't there a craps
Keno?
table?
I don't know. Yeah, there was definitely a craps table.
There was like carts. Like it was nuts. The amount of gambling in a basketball game was mind-boggling.
If it's any larger than 0, it's too much gambling.
Listen, as a former gambling addict. Only former, because I haven't been to a casino for a little while.
Because you live in Utah and it's really hard to find one.
No, I was attracted to this game immediately for all the wrong reasons.
More attracted to NBA 2K20 or Old Sonic's legs?
Oh, come on, Christian. Old Sonic's legs.
Okay, good.
But
good.
for different reasons. I'll say that. Different addictions. This game is crazy. The gameplay on it is reportedly smooth. The gameplay in single-player mode is fine.
Well, if last year's game was fine, then I'm sure this one is too, because they didn't change a damn thing.
Control-C, Control-V. Can you do that to code?
Yes, that's exactly what they did. That's why a lot of the images weren't updated.
The image.
Remember?
Oh.
All the banners in the stadium, in some of the not stadiums, in some of the arenas, the banners still said 2K19 on them.
Oh, and I forgot about this. When you opened up the Steam game,
yes, the
and
game
you minimized
file name itself.
The file name was 2K19.
That's because you copied and pasted so much that going back and filtering it all out was clearly too much work.
They were like, should we change this?
That's what those stadiums, the banners in the Staples Center were 2K19 banners. So it's authentic.
It's extremely accurate.
It's very accurate and realistic. Not only that, there are in-game ads. You buy the game for $60.
No.
There are unskippable in-game ads.
I did not know this. What?
That is wild.
Dude.
An ad in a full-price game? This is like free mobile game.
This feels like a Vault Tech sim. Like, this feels like, how far can we push people who are literally forced to play our game if they want to play a basketball game? How do we push them to the absolute limits? And this year, they're sitting there watching EA, and they're sitting on and they're resting on their laurels, and they're like, is EA going to do NBA Live? Are they going to get it out this year? Are we actually going to have something to compete with? And then the moment that EA's like, oh yeah, NBA Live's not happening, they're like, put all the microtransaction actions in. Ads, everything. Make it a gambling sim. Who fucking cares? They don't have an option.
Send it now.
This is a monopoly, folks. Unbelievable.
We got a monopoly situation going
We have a
on
monopoly situation. Put all the hotels on all the properties. We're going to bilk them.
All right, so what's your nomination?
This is
also a low-hanging fruit.
I was going to say, the worst sequel category is kind of hard some years because the gaming industry has become very awesome as of late in terms of original new IPs coming out all the time. It's super cool. I mean, you say what you will
and we've
about...
gotten good sequels, too.
Yeah.
I'll say we've gotten very good sequels.
We're getting good sequels, but it's also not at the point where we're having... We don't have to live off of the 14th Call of Duty game, for example, anymore. So we have a lot of original games, and it's kind of hard to find bad sequels, but thank God for sports games. Because if we didn't have sports games, this category would feel a little dry, and we wouldn't have the miraculous game that is WWE 2K20.
Wow. This game, it shouldn't have shipped. I'll just put it that way. This isn't even a game. This is early alpha.
This is like WWE Classic. It is like the same WWE game you played in 2008 in your buddy's basement on his PS2.
With the same graphics, because
graphics look the same. Gameplay's clunky. I mean, there are people that posted videos online of the walk-ins.
It's a big piece. You choose your character, and if you've ever watched any WWE, when they come in, often it's a big deal, like fireworks, and
you got music
plays, and they walk down this big long ramp, to get to the.
Is there a name, Christian? Is there a name for that?
I think it's just your entrance, right?
Your
I'm not
entrance,
a big professional wrestling fan, but so
I guess it's just
probably yelling at us right now, like what it's called. But
what are you talking about?
You morons!
Honking their horn. Pissing off everyone.
I love the idea of our fans getting mad and just randomly honking. That's what they start doing because they're so out of control.
I'm gonna get a voicemail. I am, and someone's gonna
just
be
a horn in the background. Like idiots. So anyway, the entrances that they were doing in last year's game were so cool and awesome, and then this year's game looked like they'd redone everything, and they were all bad. Or
and sometimes they weren't even working.
Yeah, they didn't work.
People loved the entrances, and they wouldn't work. And then you would try to start your match, and it would just be so lagged that you would see just random frames of the match. It was unplayable. You would just sit there. And
I watched a few streams of this, and it literally was just like the streamers were just in hysterics. If a game is so bad that the streams are all, you could switch from stream to stream, and it's just the game being so broken that the streamer can't even breathe because he's laughing so hard, you don't have a good title on your hands. I also thought it was pretty funny.
I don't know. That does sound pretty entertaining. I'm not going to lie to you, though.
On a whim, I looked it up on Metacritic, and critics were, I feel like, they're like, yeah, well, I know there was a human behind this game, and, everyone makes mistakes, and we'll give you... They averaged a 43 on
Video
Metacritic.
Game critics?
Yeah, 43 was like, oh, yeah, you guys tried. But then you look at the user score, and it is 0.4 on Metacritic out of 10. The users were like, no, fuck that shit. This is the worst game I have ever played. 0. They're just like, that is so many zeros to get to a 0.4. You can't even crack a whole number on your score. Yeah, so I gotta put WWE 2K20 up for worst sequel because it really lives up to the spirit of the award, which is just being like such a letdown and objectively worse than the previous title.
They shipped it so they could get a Blursty.
Dude, listen, studios, come on. We give out these Blursties. It's a fun thing. It's an award thing. You shouldn't be trying to get them.
I know it's prestigious, but guys,
I know you all have your shelves. You all have your shelves.
They recognize that every game, every industry needs a heel, just like in wrestling, right? Someone turns heel, so they did it. They turned heel this year, and wait till next year's Raw. When they come out and everybody gets excited again.
You're telling me that they made a meta commentary with the game itself? This is so... Dude, we got to take them off the list. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened. This is next level.
Suddenly impressed.
Way to go, 2K. You really turned it around on this. Oh, yeah, everyone loves a heel. Okay, so that's it. That's it. We wrapped it.
We did it. Those are our nominations for... the first 5 nominations for 2019's Blursties. So Christian Spicer, thank you. We cannot thank you enough for joining us. We're recording later than normal, so sometimes you get like Mountain Dew post-work Peterson. Now you guys are getting like double due Peterson at midnight
and
type of
4
situation.
hours of sleep last night, JD.
Yeah.
This is so...
When I edit this, what was I talking about? So, Christian, thank you so much for joining us. Christian, tell everyone where they can find you, all of your internet stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks for staying up for me and with me, and then hopefully I'm also not on my usual Mike, I'm out and about, but not out. I'm at KFC right now.
On that KFC.
You were inspired.
I'm on a date with the
Eating them
Colonel, and I just
taters.
took a call. So thank you for getting me out of that date. It did not go well. His 11 herbs and spices.
He was very aggressive.
If you keep looking at pictures of Sonic's legs, you're gonna get kicked out of that KFC, though. I'm just telling you.
Not fast enough, you know. But I host a video game podcast show with Jeff Kanata called DLC. You can find it at 5by5.tv/DLC or on your podcast provider of choice. And you can follow me on Twitter at Spicer, SPICER. I haven't been on the road for a while, actually. Hopefully 2020 I'll talk about some of the fun stuff that's been taking up a bunch of my time, but nothing to talk about now. But if you are in LA and want to catch a show, Twitter is usually the best way to see them and find out about them. And again, it's at Spicer. And then typically I will stream DLC on my Twitch, which is just twitch.tv/Christian Spicer. And that's pretty much all I do on Twitch. And then I usually will do charity streaming for St. Jude Children's Hospital because I love their mission and what they do. But don't expect a lot of streaming content. But if you want to hang out and watch DLC live, that is usually Sundays at 7:15 p.m. Pacific.
Awesome,
Very
Christian. And also, I will give you some kudos for your St. Jude's charity stuff. Incredible. Last year we plugged it when you were doing it because I love it so much. I think it's a great cause. So, well done. Good work on that. DLC is an amazing gaming podcast, so check it out, guys. Like you said, anywhere where you can find podcasts.
All right, guys, that does it for us this week. Keep an eye out on social media. We will be posting voting after next week's episode airs, so our listeners can actually decide who the Blursties winners are. This is a public choice award every year.
Obviously.
Yeah, we let you guys...
We let you guys pick all my nominations. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fine.
All right, guys, that does it for us. I'm JD, logging off.
This is Peterson going AFK.
This is Christian continuing my awkward date with the Colonel.
Peterson Productions. Oh, yeah.